welcome to another episode of Fine Arts. And last time we had left off at what you see here on your camera. And today we're going to continue with the head. We're going to start on the head. And I'm going to want to put a lot of the detail in right now, just so it gives me an idea of where this painting is going. So again, I'm using my very fine tip brush. There's a lot of shading in this painting. And there's a very clear light source, and it's coming from the left side. So it's you really have to get all the right parts lit up, and really keep in mind where the shade is supposed to be. So then I'm just making some skin tones here, and I'm adding browns to them to make them a lot darker for the shaded areas. So again, you can use any brush you want to use, whatever you feel comfortable with. It doesn't have to be everything I'm using. I'm going to work on some of that detail on the face. I think Christ has his eyes closed in this painting. I think it indicates his death. Going down to the beard. Do want to stress that you do take your time on something this intricate. I'm going to rinse my tiny brush because I want to use some light colors. I'm going to put a bit of a highlight on. That's too light, so I'm going to dim it down a bit. Well, it looks like it's taking shape. Bit lighter. The lighting in something like this is extremely important to get it right, because if you put shading or lighting in the wrong spot, it might not make sense. So I'm just trying to follow the picture as much as possible here, because there really isn't any room to play around with a painting like this. Beautiful just the way it is. Now, if you want to make something, a color darker than the brown we're using, you add a touch of the blue, and that actually makes it darker than black even. Color that's darker than black. So I use that very, very rarely, and it's basically in the darkest spots on the painting. But I think I'll leave that for when the painting is done. just starting on the upper body. I think what I'll do is I'm going to head out and I'll come back for the detail of the upper body. We're basically getting into a little bit of the detail, and the detail in this case has to do a lot with lighting and shading. So I'm just applying pure white here on some of the skin tone that I applied earlier to the painting. That way it gets to mix. And the great thing about oil paints is that they take a long time to dry. It can be a great thing or a bad thing. A great thing if you want to still mix colors to it. A bad thing if you want to let it dry and get back to it. It works both ways for me. That's the lighter area. I'm going to mix a bit of the raw umber and the burnt sienna to work on the darker area, shaded area. A long time and a lot of concentration. You do want to be careful a little more on an icon because you don't want to get the paint on the gold. Then, if you wanted to follow me as I paint this icon, it's called the Crucifixion by Nicholas Tournier. Just blending the light and the dark so it's not such a straight edge. I'm going to make myself some more skin tone. Now I like to keep mixing as I paint. Some people just mix a lot of the same tone all at once, so that it remains consistent with them. I prefer to just remake it every time I need to use the specific color. Dip that to make it a little more runny. So as you can tell, the upper body is starting to take shape here. I'm going to use a bigger brush to blend everything in. And oil, as we know, it blends beautifully. I'm going to use some more pure whites for the lightest areas. Now feel free to turn your panel any way you like so that you gain the most control possible. I have it a bit on an angle like this because I can see it best. I can reach all the areas I need to. doing some of that shading on the arm. At this point, I don't feel like I'm doing something that's necessarily finalized. I do always like to let the painting sit for a few days and then get back to it. I think that's always the best thing to do, because you want to let it sit and you want to let the paint settle, but at the same time you want to refresh your head, and you don't want to stare at something for too long, because sometimes you get immune to the mistakes you're making. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to leave this for a little bit and return to it next episode. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next time.